It was a gray Tuesday morning. The kind of morning where the sky feels heavy, the air smells faintly of rain, and the world moves a little slower than usual. Daniel, a single dad in his early 30s, pushed open the glass door of the neighborhood grocery store. He had a worn baseball cap pulled low over his tired eyes, a shopping list crumpled in his hand, and his 7-year-old daughter Lily skipping beside him, clutching her favorite stuffed bunny. Life hadn't been easy for Daniel lately. Ever since Lily's mother left 2 years ago, he had been doing everything he could to keep their small world together, working double shifts at the auto repair shop, packing school lunches before dawn, reading bedtime stories long after his own exhaustion set in. Money was always tight, but love was never in short supply. They didn't need much today, just bread, milk, some fruit, and a treat for Lily if the budget allowed. As they walked down the aisles, Lily's little voice filled the space with innocent chatter about her day at school, the art project she wanted to make, and how she thought rain smelled like the sky was washing itself. Daniel smiled softly. Her words were like little pockets of light in his otherwise weary days. When they reached the checkout line, there were only 2 people ahead of them. Daniel noticed the cashier right away. She was a young woman in her mid-20s, with neatly tied back hair and a simple name tag that read Emily. She was scanning groceries for the man in front of them, but Daniel couldn't help but see that her hands were trembling, not just a little, but enough that the milk carton wobbled in her grip. At first, he thought maybe she was just cold. The store was chilly, after all. But then he noticed the look in her eyes, wide, unfocused, and filled with something he couldn't quite name. Her lips pressed together tightly, almost like she was holding her breath between each beep of the scanner. When it was finally their turn, Daniel began unloading his few items onto the conveyor belt. Lily placed her loaf of bread carefully, then her bunny, giggling when she realized the bunny wasn't for sale. Emily tried to smile, but her hands shook again as she reached for the bread. Daniel hesitated, then spoke gently. "Hey, are you all right?" Emily froze for a second, as if she wasn't sure she had heard him. Her eyes flicked up to meet his. "I'm fine," she said quickly, but her voice cracked ever so slightly. He didn't push. But when she reached for the milk, the carton slipped from her grasp and rolled toward the edge of the counter. Daniel caught it just in time. "Here," he said softly, handing it back to her. "You sure you're okay? Your hands, they're shaking." This time, Emily stopped completely. She looked down at her trembling fingers, then back at Daniel, and for a moment, it seemed like she was fighting an internal battle, whether to tell the truth or keep it hidden. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she finally replied. "I haven't eaten in 2 days." The words hit Daniel like a punch to the chest. He blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "What?" Emily looked away, shame coloring her cheeks. "It's just, I've been trying to make rent. Things have been really bad lately. I give most of my paycheck to cover bills, and food just hasn't been something I can afford right now." "I didn't mean to say that out loud." She shook her head, almost embarrassed. "I'm sorry, it's not professional." Daniel stood there for a second, completely still. He thought about all the nights he had gone without a proper meal so that Lily could eat. He thought about the ache in his own stomach he'd learned to ignore, the constant worry about money, the quiet sacrifices that no one ever saw. He knew exactly what it felt like to be in her shoes. He glanced at Lily, who was hugging her bunny and looking up at him with wide eyes, clearly sensing something important was happening. Without another word, Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out the last of the cash money he had been saving to buy Lily that small toy she'd been wanting for weeks. He placed it on the counter. "Add some groceries for yourself," he said firmly. Emily's eyes widened. "Oh no, I can't. I can't take your money." "You can," Daniel replied, his voice steady. "Because I know what it's like to go without. And nobody should have to choose between paying rent and eating." For a moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she nodded, her eyes filling with tears. She scanned his items, then hesitantly added a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, some bananas, and a carton of eggs, all for herself. When Daniel handed her the cash, she tried to thank him, but her voice broke. "You don't know what this means to me. I've been so tired. I didn't think anyone even noticed. Daniel gave her a small smile. Sometimes, all we need is for someone to notice. Lily reached across the counter and handed Emily her stuffed bunny. He's really good at hugs, she said matter-of-factly. You can borrow him until you feel better. Emily laughed through her tears and accepted the soft toy, holding it close for just a moment before returning it. Thank you, Lily. That's the nicest thing anyone's done for me in a long time. As Daniel and Lily walked out of the store, the sky finally let go of its rain. Droplets fell gently on their shoulders, and Daniel felt an unexpected warmth spread through him. He had given up a small luxury for his daughter, but in return, he had given someone else something far more valuable: hope. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she asked, "Daddy, why did that lady not have food?" Daniel thought for a moment before answering. Because sometimes, sweetheart, life is hard. But when life is hard for someone else, that's when we have to be kind the most. Lily nodded, seeming to understand in her own childlike way. I think kindness is like magic. You gave her food, but I think you also gave her a little happy inside. Daniel smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered, exactly. Days passed, and Daniel didn't think much more about it. But one afternoon, a week later, he returned to the grocery store with Lily. As they entered, Emily spotted them from her register and immediately waved them over. I have something for you, she said with a bright smile. She reached under the counter and pulled out a small paper bag. It's for Lily. Inside was the very toy Daniel had been saving up for, a small plush puppy with big floppy ears. I couldn't forget what you did for me, Emily said. I used part of my first paycheck after paying rent to get this. It's not much, but... Before she could finish, Lily squealed and hugged the toy tightly. I love him, she exclaimed. Thank you, Miss Emily. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. You didn't have to. I wanted to, Emily interrupted. Because kindness, it comes back. You gave me hope when I needed it most. And now I want to give a little of that back to you. They stood there for a moment, just smiling at each other, three people connected by a simple act of humanity. And as Daniel walked out of the store that day, holding Lily's hand, he realized something profound. Sometimes the smallest gestures leave the biggest impact. Because in a world where everyone is fighting battles we can't see, one act of kindness can be the thing that keeps someone going. And you never know, one day, that kindness might just find its way back to you.